Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I'm your host, Grace Becker. And for today's beverage, as we chat today, I am having some tea, not sponsored, but it's the Tazo brand. And this is one of their dessert teas. Oh, it's so good. It's their glazed lemon loaf tea. So delicious. Put a little honey in there. Put a little like half and half creamer situation. So good. So good. If you're not on the tea grind, what are you doing? It's so good. I love tea so much. I also love coffee. Are you a coffee person or are you a tea person? Put it in the comments down below. I feel like most people I encounter have a preferred one, or at least one that they're strongly stand for. I really love both. I love a coffee in the morning or in the afternoon, and I love a tea in the evening, or honestly in the morning too. Yeah, I like them both. If I had to go with one though, I would probably go with coffee. I just love coffee so much. I love tea so much as well. Just not as much as coffee, but don't let her know that. What are you all drinking? Put it down in the comments what your beverage is as you're listening to this. As you're listening to this, I hope you're able to do whatever it is you need to do. Are you on a drive somewhere and you're just tuning in to get a little bit of help today, a little bit of advice, support? Are you cleaning up? Are you cleaning your house? Are you cleaning your car? Are you cleaning your junk drawer? Are you cleaning that drawer in the nightstand? You know what we're talking about. Let us know what you're doing. Or maybe you're just chilling. You're just resting, having your drink with me and as we chat today. For today's topic, I'm going to be talking about a therapy modality. So kind of getting started with it, my question for all of you is, have you ever felt very anxious, overwhelmed, like you were overthinking a situation and then ended up feeling even more anxious, stressed, overwhelmed because you were thinking about feeling anxious, stressed, and overwhelmed, and maybe just struggled to accept how you're feeling, to accept what's happened, and to work out how to cope with whatever is going on? A very complicated question because it's all very complicated emotions, right? Sometimes the harder we fight our thoughts and feelings, the worse we feel, is what I wanted to say. So today we're going to be talking about that therapy modality that I was mentioning that kind of flips that approach from fighting our thoughts and feelings to actually working with them. And that is called acceptance and commitment therapy, or for short, ACT, which is spelt just like how it said, ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. So you'll hear me probably refer to it as ACT throughout most of this, and sometimes acceptance and commitment therapy. Just know I'm talking about the same thing. So in explaining this, ACT basically is about learning to accept the things that you can't control and commit to actions and things that you can control that align with your values or that align with the next best step in whatever situation you're facing. So acceptance, we are learning to accept what we can't control. Commitment therapy, we are learning to commit to actions and things and tasks that align with what we can control, that align with our values, that align with the next best solution. So yeah, a little bit of history about acceptance and commitment therapy because I just think it's really interesting how it was developed. ACT grew out of decades of evolution in psychology. It began with behavioralism, which, if any of you know B.F. Skinner, this was in like the 1900s, mid 1900s, when researchers like B.F. Skinner focused on changing behavior through reinforcement. So if you've ever heard that study where like they would ring a bell and they would give a dog some food, and they would ring a bell, give the dog food, ring the bell, give the dog food. And eventually they would just ring the bell and then not give the dog food, but the dog would have behavioral reactions, like their mouth would begin to slobber, or they would begin to like lick their lips. They would get really excited. That's behavioral reinforcement. And we're not getting into necessarily that today, but you can have like a positive reinforcement and you can also have a negative reinforcement. So like food is a positive reinforcement, but maybe like taking away something can, like taking away the food can be a negative reinforcement. But it grew out of this, but without as much attention. The behavioralism era didn't really give as much focus to thoughts and feelings. And out of this behavioralism came cognitive revolution in the 1970s and 80s, when therapies like CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy taught people to challenge unhelpful thoughts to change their emotions. So then now we're starting to bring in thoughts and feelings into the behavior, because all three are connected, right? The things that we think affect how we feel, which affects how we behave. And it doesn't always have to start with thoughts. It can start with behavior, which affects what we think, which affects how we feel. Or maybe, like me today, I woke up just feeling like sad. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what specifically was going on, but I was just feeling sad and I wanted to cry. And I even like forced out some tears to Jaden, my fiance, and he was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I really don't know." I really don't know. I'm not on my cycle right now. It's probably coming. But that just like started with my feelings. That can influence my thoughts. Was thinking like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand this. And then my behavior was kind of just to keep going on with my day and paying attention to what I was feeling and thinking. But so it started with this behavioralism, right? And then we started to bring in the thoughts and the feelings. And then psychologist Dr. Stephen Hayes is who struggled with his own panic attacks and noticed that something deeper, that trying to control or eliminate painful thoughts often made them worse. What? Not so crazy today to think that, right? But back then it was truly like, what? Like, oh my gosh, you're telling me if I suppress my thoughts and my feelings, like that could make things worse? Newsflash, yes, it does. And it can very much so make things worse. So from that insight, Dr. Stephen Hayes then and his colleagues, Kelly Wilson and Kirk, I'm going to so pronounce this name wrong, I'm so sorry, Strozahl, developed acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, in the 1980s and 90s as part of the third wave of behavior therapy. So instead of aiming to fix or fight our inner experiences, right? So like inner experiences as in thoughts and feelings, acceptance and commitment therapy teaches us acceptance, mindfulness, and values-based action. And these are very helpful because it helps people to live meaningful lives even when things are difficult, because let's face it, things are difficult. We go through hardships. It's just a part of life, and you can't always change the outcome of something, or you can't turn back the clock, or you can't necessarily prevent something from happening, and that is hard to cope with. So this therapy teaches you to accept that and gives you practical things to do to like keep moving forward in the midst of the difficulty. So yeah, it's really great. It's built on the science of rational frame theory. ACT emphasizes the psychological flexibility, so the ability to stay present, open up, and do what matters most. And you have to be flexible with this. It's very, very hard. A lot of people, when they hear this, acceptance and commitment therapy or acceptance, they confuse acceptance with agreeing. And you don't have to, like, those two things don't have to coexist. You can learn to accept something for what it is without necessarily agreeing with it. You know what I mean? And so today, ACT is recognized as a evidence-based therapy modality, and it's used around the world. I use it with clients all the time, all the time. And it's really helpful in treating many things. I primarily, like most commonly, I would say, use it for people with anxiety, depression, chronic pain, people who are struggling to accept or cope with like a difficult circumstance, like maybe the loss of somebody, the death of somebody, the loss of a job, the loss of a partnership, the government and the state of our world, lots of stuff like that, right? And it's a very powerful reminder that peace doesn't come from controlling our thoughts, but from learning to live with them. So, yeah, that is kind of a quick history of ACT and a little bit of kind of what it can do for you. So, as we're going into this, I'm going to present some like 6 core processes on how to basically the flow of ACT. And mind you, I'm talking about these 6 different steps. It's not always linear, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're going to learn to accept something and then move on to what you can, like what actions you can commit to. And then the next day you're going to have another thought or situation come up, and then you have to learn to accept that all over again. So just know that these steps aren't linear. Go at your own like pace. There's no timeline for these things. And take what works for you as always and leave the rest. So the first step number 1 is acceptance. So this means making room for painful emotions instead of fighting them. So an example of this, feeling grief fully instead of numbing out the emotions. So if any of you are in therapy, or maybe you just have heard this somewhere, or you're a wise person in general, the common thing is feel your feelings, right? Make space for your feelings. When you shove them down, you avoid them, right? Like if you're grieving the loss of somebody, trying to numb out the feelings, trying to shove them down so you can avoid it, it's not going to help anything. It's going to make it more difficult to do things in your day to day, to be able to face other challenges that are likely going to come up. So the key with like this acceptance, right? Making room for painful emotions. You don't need to fight them. You know, if something is depressing, it's depressing. You don't have to feel a certain way about something. Your feelings are always valid. If you feel depressed about something, you are allowed to feel that way. If you feel angry about something, you are allowed to feel angry about it. If you feel happy and excited about something, awesome. Usually that's a little bit easier for certain people to accept, but happiness can be hard for others, especially if you don't think you deserve to be happy. You know, I have people who I work with who do believe that, like something good happens to them and they're like, I'm a worthless person, I don't deserve that. So it can be a hard feeling to accept as well. So make room for those feelings. And when I say feel your feelings, there's a lot of different ways to feel them. You can literally sit with it and just process through that. And how you process through that is talking with someone. You know, people who go to therapy, that is processing. You are talking it out loud with a professional. You can process it with a friend. You can process it with a family member, with a partner. You can say it out loud to them. You could say it out loud to yourself. You could talk to your pet. You could journal. You could do like a voice memo. I know people who do voice memos to themselves all the time, like a digital diary kind of thing. Maybe you type it out. You know, I'm personally I'm a fast typer. And I can be a slow writer because I'm typing those notes up every day. So I love me a good little like notes app text, or on my Google Doc, just like typing up something if I'm feeling a certain way. So that is step 1, is acceptance, learning to make room for painful emotions instead of trying to fight them. Okay, step number 2 is cognitive diffusion. So this means seeing thoughts just as thoughts, not as truth, okay? Oh my goodness, this is really hard because our brains love to lie to us. They love to overthink. They love to make up scenarios, and that just drives us crazy, right? So, cognitive diffusion, learning to tell yourself, okay, this thought is just a thought, it's not fact. And often when you're having these, when we in therapy we call them automatic thoughts, irrational thoughts. There's honestly a few different names for it. But basically just an unhelpful thought. We advise or we ask the person, okay, well, what do you know to be true? Or what evidence do you have to support that? Because when we're having irrational thoughts, what is best in fighting them or helping you to see the reality of a situation is bringing in the facts, or bringing in the values you have, what you know to be true is really, really big, because this is what's going to help kind of again, diffuse those thoughts and make you realize, okay, so it's really not that deep. That's the big saying these days, right? It's not that deep. And it's really not. It isn't. Okay. So that is step number 2. Okay. I thought I had another bullet point with that one, so I was just looking. Step number 3 is being present. And so this is where the mindfulness comes in. Basically, this is when you're going to notice the here and the now, right? Because when we're getting caught up in something, oftentimes it's kind of like one of two things, right? We're rethinking things that have already happened in the past, like analyzing it, overanalyzing it, or we're thinking about things that haven't yet happened or things that could happen, right? Overthinking it that way. And so what we want to do is we want to focus on being in the here and the now. We want to be present. We want to be mindful. And I've talked about a lot of different mindfulness skills in the past. Depending what you're going through, it might vary how you practice mindfulness. But a few different things you could do, just taking some deep breaths, okay? Taking deep breath in, holding it, letting it go, and then breathing as normal, and doing that a few times, okay? That really helps to calm down your nervous system, and then you're able to think more clearly. You're able to feel your feelings better usually, and you're able to come up with, okay, what is the next best step I could take, And little sidebar, not every issue requires a solution. Sometimes you just need reassurance, or the people around you just need reassurance. So something to think about, okay? But back to being present, being mindful, you could do deep breathing. You could do the 5-4-3-2-1 skill, which is basically using all 5 of your senses: sight, touch, hear, smell, taste, and just kind of going down the list and looking for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And that just really brings you into your environment that you're in and to be more aware. One skill that I have shared, and I actually, I should have looked this up beforehand, but I have shared an episode. You'll just have to go back. It wasn't that long ago. I had an episode where I talked about a skill called STOP. It's an acronym that stands for stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. Go listen to that, because that is a really great skill if you're trying to practice this aspect of being present, being mindful. I find that stop is a really good foundation to build upon when you're practicing mindfulness. So definitely go give that a listen. But that was step number 3, right? Being present. Step number 4 is to practice self as context. So this is the quote, observing self, unquote. It's when you are the space where experiences happen, not the context of them. It sounds kind of odd, I'll say. But stick with me for a minute here. So the observing self. So this is basically taking a step back and getting a bird's eye view on the situation. Okay. So self as context, you are observing the experience. You're observing, okay, what's the situation? Who's involved? What was said? What was done? What has happened in the past? What's the fear for the future? What are the feelings? What are the thoughts, right? This is where you're observing the situation. rather than making it a personal experience, you're going to attempt to zoom out, get a bird's eye view, and just observe yourself as the context. So that's why we call it the observing self. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me think of an example. So let's say that you and your partner are getting into a huge fight because like people aren't holding up their end of household chores, and so you're getting into a fight about it, right? What I would want you to do in that situation is basically like stop fighting. Again, this is where that one episode I recommended comes in hand. But stop whatever you're doing, take a step back, do the like being present mindfulness skills, like the deep breathing, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to observe, okay, like what was said. Well, my partner said that I have been a horrible like housemate lately because I haven't been doing my end of the bargain of cleaning my dishes, taking out trash, scooping the cat boxes, right? And then how'd that make you feel? Okay, well, that made me feel really blamed, shamed, and guilty. And then, okay, what did you do in response? Well, I yelled back, of course, because I was feeling attacked, so I attacked back, right? And then you can reflect, again, self as concept, we're reflecting on what you could have done better and what they could have done better. What could you have done differently to end that situation in a more agreeable or basically just on a better note, you know, because again, acceptance isn't meaning to agree, okay? You and your partner can both have different opinions and they can exist at the same time, okay? So hopefully that example kind of helps a little bit for that fourth step, self as context. Okay. Step number 5 is values. And this is important because it helps you to clarify what truly matters to you. In my example with the partner, right, of two people yelling, one thing you might want to reflect on is your values, right? What's important to you? Is it important? Is it more important to you that your partner feels really guilty about not helping so that they will do it more? Or is it maybe more important to you that your partner respects you and wants to help you, right? You're more likely to get your partner to help you around the house with chores and things if you approach them in a calm manner and you share your thoughts, your feelings without placing any blame onto them. And then you give them a request, right? A fair request of what it is that you're needing. Because when you reflect on your value and you're like, okay, well, I want my partner to feel respected. I don't want them to feel guilty or shamed. But I also want to feel respected and heard, right? Because that's important in my partnership with this person. So because you reflected on that value of yours, you're more likely to do things, to think things, and to feel things around that value, okay, which tends to yield better outcomes for yourself and for everyone involved. So that is step number 5, values, clarifying what truly matters to you in a situation, because sometimes we can lose sight of it. I lose sight of it sometimes too. I'm a therapist, but I'm also a human. Okay, everyone does it. Sometimes I get so frustrated or I get so in my own feelings and thoughts that I forget to reflect on, okay, what really matters at the end of the day here? You know what I mean? So take the time to do that. And then step number 6 is the committing to action aspect. So this is when you're going to do what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. Okay? Because sometimes we do have to do things that are uncomfortable. It's not always going to be, but sometimes it will be, okay? You're going to have to commit to actions that are going to uphold those values that you talked about, that are going to uphold what it is that like is going to be the next best step for yourself for that situation. Okay, so let me think of an example of doing what matters even when it's uncomfortable. Okay, let's say in that partner example I gave, right? Like one partner is not holding up their end of the bargain for chores around the house. Let's say your partner's request was, I could really use some more help around the house. it would be great if maybe you tackled like 3 nights of the week cleaning the cat's litter boxes. Okay. That might be uncomfortable for you. Maybe it really grosses you out. Like, you do not like scooping cat shit and cat piss out of the litter box. You don't like sweeping it up. You don't like vacuuming it up. Like, you just don't like to be around it, right? That might be uncomfortable for you, okay? And, like, you have to reflect what values do you hold, right? Is it important that your partner feels respected and heard and supported? Okay. Well, then that might be something uncomfortable you have to do, right? Something else uncomfortable that's less like of a task uncomfortability, something that is uncomfortable for a lot of people, oh my gosh, is sharing their thoughts and feelings with another person, especially if it's someone who like caused you to feel angry or caused you to feel sad or lonely. Because it's like kind of confrontational, right? But it's important that you set these boundaries. It's important that these people know that the things they do or say have an impact on you. So you might have to commit to an action that, such as sharing your thoughts, sharing your feelings, sharing what you need. And that might be what's uncomfortable for you, okay? And you can go at your own pace, of course, right? Like I said, there's no timeline. And doing nothing or suppressing, that is what's going to make it worse. We don't have to like hike up our skirts and run through this, right, real quick. However, small steps is encouraged, because that's where progress is going to come from. And that's how you're going to truly get what you need to feel better about a situation, okay? So those are the 6 steps in this ACT format, okay? The next thing that I was going to talk about is a really common metaphor that a lot of therapists and people like to use. It's called the passengers on the bus metaphor, okay? So ACT uses this metaphor called passengers on the bus, and it helps us to imagine our thoughts and emotions as passengers. Some are supportive, some are critical, and you're the driver, and your values are your destination. The trick isn't getting rid of the noisy passengers, right? It's learning to keep driving anyway. So this is how it kind of goes. Okay, passengers on the bus. Imagine you are the driver of a bus. You have a clear destination, the life you want to live, guided by your values, right? Things like connection, honesty, creativity, love, growth, yada, 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 right? But as you start driving your bus, a bunch of passengers get on board. Some are friendly and supportive, but others are loud, scary, or critical of you. They yell things like, "You're not good enough," to do that anyway, "Turn back before you embarrass yourself," "You'll fail if you keep driving toward that goal." These passengers represent your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, and your fears. The uncomfortable inner experiences that show up when you try to move forward in something that matters to you, okay? The lesson here is that at first you might stop the bus, right? Turn around and try to kick them off. But the more you fight with these passengers, the less you move toward your destination. The time you are taking to fight these passengers is time that you could have spent moving forward anyway. And in ACT, the key idea here is that you can't control who gets on the bus, but you can control the choice to keep driving in the direction that matters to you. The goal isn't to silence the passengers, it's to make room for them and to keep acting according to your values instead of your fears. Because again, we accept all thoughts. We accept all the feelings, right? And you are going to be having these critical inner thoughts. You're also going to be having these like cheerleader inner thoughts. But we're learning to make room for all of them and to keep moving forward in a way that aligns with our values instead of our fears. And over time, those noisy passengers may quiet down or they might not. But you'll be living a life guided by what's meaningful, not by what's comfortable. And that is the most important thing. You maybe have heard that, at the end of people's lives, the things that they regret the most are the things that they didn't do, Don't let these noisy passengers prevent you from the things that you want to do, okay? If you have a boundary that you want to set that boundary. If you have a goal, like a fitness goal or a health goal, do what you can to move forward towards that goal, no matter what noisy passengers are saying to you. If you have, let's say, like a goal in therapy, right? Like to be able to better cope and process your thoughts and feelings. Like no matter what noisy passenger gets on that bus, you just keep moving forward and do it out of your own values, not out of your fears. Okay? So in kind of reflection, I would like to invite you all to reflect on something this week, okay? And so what I would like you to do is to reflect on what value do you want to act on this week, okay? What is a value you have? What is something important to you? And what action can you commit to this week to move towards that goal? Accepting the thoughts, accepting the feelings, accepting whatever is true, and what can you commit to as far as your actions towards that, okay? Something for you to reflect on this week. Thank you all so much for listening. If you made it this far in the episode, let's have you comment down an emoji below. I think let's comment a little brain emoji, okay? Just because we're helping heal this brain up here, okay? So if you made it this far, comment the emoji of a brain below. Don't forget to tell me if you prefer coffee or tea. I need to know. Please like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Do all those things. It really helps the podcast. If you know anyone in your life who struggles with this kind of things, share this with them. Maybe that's part of a value that aligns with you, and a small step you're taking is sharing this with somebody you know and that you care about. That would be lovely. Okay, well, as always, all of my socials and information is going to be down below if you want to like support the podcast on other social media, or if you want to get a hold of us. As always, thank you so much for tuning in this Thursday. I upload a podcast every Thursday, so you can tune in on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. But until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye!